This family wasn't just cruel, they were monsters. My husband had promised to visit his family first before New Year's Eve, then return with me to Oak Ridge TN, so we could spend New Year's Eve with my family. We packed up the car and drove to Dry Creek, KY, where Daryl's family lived. His parents and sisters were delighted to see us, especially since I had thoughtfully prepared expensive gifts for everyone. The first few days at their house were pleasant. After lunch, I began urging Daryl to start driving me back to my parents' place. I was so caught up in my excitement that I didn't notice the growing irritation on Daryl's face. As we approached the yard gate, he suddenly pulled his arm away and bellowed, "I'm not going." The force of his words stunned me. I froze for a moment, staring at him in disbelief. "What did you say?" I stammered. His face was etched with frustration. Without sparing me a glance, he repeated, "I said, I'm not going," and turned to walk back into the house. I hurried after him, grabbing his arm again. "Daryl Whitaker, what do you mean you're not going? You promised we'd spend New Year's at my parents' house. What's this all about?" He yanked his arm free and snapped, "I said I'm not going because I don't feel like it. Can't you understand that?" He stormed off, leaving me standing there, stunned by his blunt dismissal. As I watched him walk away, realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The promise to spend New Year's Eve with my family had been a lie. He had lured me to Dry Creek, far from my parents in Oak Ridge, knowing I'd be trapped. Without the car keys, and with the holiday rush making it impossible to buy a bus ticket, I had no way of leaving. It was all a calculated move to ensure that I had no choice but to stay here for New Year's. Fury welled up inside me. I charged toward him and kicked him hard in the leg. "Daryl Whitaker, you planned this, didn't you? You never intended to visit my parents, did you? You lied to me." Daryl's parents, Marlene and Clyde, along with his sisters, Brenda and Josie, poured out of the house. Their expressions ranged from smug satisfaction to thinly veiled disdain. Clearly, they'd overheard the argument. Daryl's ego couldn't take the hit. His face twisted in anger, and before I could react, he slapped me across the face. The force of the blow left me reeling, tears springing to my eyes. "You're no man!" I yelled, clutching my stinging cheek. Furious, I raised my hand to strike back, but he grabbed my wrist and twisted it sharply. Pain shot through my arm. Before I could cry out, a heavy blow landed on my head. The world spun, and my vision blurred. The fireplace poker he'd swung at me clattered to the ground as I crumpled. The moment I hit the dirt, his kicks and punches started raining down. "You don't listen!" he shouted. "You had to keep pushing me. You're desperate to go back to Oak Ridge? Why? Got a lover waiting for you? You're nothing but trouble." I curled into a ball, shielding my head with my hands, trying to endure the relentless assault. Amid the chaos, I heard his family's voices, loud and gleeful. Their taunts echoed around me as I lay there, battered and broken. It was in that moment I realized the full extent of the nightmare I'd walked into. This family wasn't just cruel, they were monsters. I tried to push myself up, to fight back, but the dizziness overwhelmed me. The first blow to my head must have caused a concussion. My vision swam, and darkness crept in. As my consciousness slipped away, I heard their laughter, loud and unrelenting, as they returned to the house. I was left alone in the yard, discarded like trash. The winter wind bit into my skin, like icy needles, making every part of me ache. The cold night air howled through the yard as I slowly opened my eyes. It was a moonless, star-filled night. I was still lying in the corner of the Whitakers' yard, abandoned and forgotten. Inside the house, Daryl's family was gathered, enjoying their New Year's Eve dinner and watching the ball drop on TV. The pain radiating from my body brought me fully back to my senses. I tried to move, wincing as I propped myself up against the corner of the wall. The sting in my head and the bruises on my body were made worse by the bitter wind cutting through my clothes. I was cold to my core, inside and out. That's when everything became clear. The Whitakers weren't just cruel, they were monsters. They had stood by as Daryl beat me, egging him on, as if my suffering were a spectator sport. This was their way of showing me my place. In their eyes, now that I was married to Daryl, I belonged to him, and by extension, to them. If I dared to resist their rules, they'd punish me however they wanted. I wasn't a wife to them, I was their servant, their obedient daughter-in-law, their personal ATM. I looked through the window at their cheerful gathering, holding onto the wall for support. I moved as silently as possible. Fortunately, Daryl's bedroom was far enough from the dining room that they couldn't hear me. I crept into his room, my fingers trembling as I rummaged through his clothes. Finally, I felt the cold metal of the car keys in his pocket. With the keys secured, I grabbed my phone and purse. In the dark, I slipped back out of the bedroom and toward the main gate. Luckily, the gate wasn't fully shut, just left slightly ajar. I nudged it open just enough to squeeze through, keeping as quiet as possible.